just say no. She really wanted me to believe her, and I didn't believe her. And I didn't want to bullshit believe her. I didn't want to tell her, yeah, I do believe you, or I do trust you, because the evidence was just overwhelming for me. And there were too many times in the past that she told me porcupines. So I honestly did not trust her in that moment, right? And we found ourselves locked in a standoff where she was adamant and getting angrier and angrier and more upset. Like, I swear on my life, I swear on God's life, I swear on your life. And I wasn't moving anywhere. I was also adamant that, hey, she's definitely done this. And I was trying to say to her at the time that, hey, telling the truth is important and all that kind of thing. But to be honest, I was in a bit of a strange space, right? I wasn't sure what the right thing was to say. And I often have this ability when I'm triggered a little bit to go into this rigid pattern, and I need to know the answers, right? So I was trying to search for the right words when what I really needed to do was search for the right energy.
All right, nearly there. Just shutting all these things down. I've got so many open. All right. What if the way you talk to your children when they lie is the same way that you talk to yourself when you drink alcohol and you're really pissed off about that? Hello, everybody. My name is Davy. I'm not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I am someone who lives a self-led life, alcohol-free as fuck, and I spend every waking moment of that life helping other people do the same, like right now. In today's episode, I'm going to blend a personal story, personal experience, with a problem that a striver of mine has been experiencing. And together, the two problems will give you some valuable insight into one of the reasons that we drink alcohol and what we could do about it more effectively. So my daughter's here. She's 8 going on 9. She's going to be 9 like in 2 months or something. And I've noticed over the past couple of months, let's say, a little problem around impulse control, right? So she feels a need to eat sweets, for example, and boom, she has to eat them no matter what, right? And what's happening is I'm catching her out a few times, and there is a part of her that is lying to keep her safe. So if I say to her, did you eat those sweets? There's a part of her that will say no, and it will like dig its heels in and get really angry at me for not trusting her, whilst at the same time it's telling porcupines. And I know the reason it's doing it is just to keep her safe, right? But it is something that I am working on and working around at the moment. So the other day, I knew there was a pot of sweets up in the attic for a friend. It was for a friend of hers, and then I noticed they disappeared. And I found a wrapping paper in her quilt. So like I am like Detective Lee, right? So I'm like, okay, she's definitely ate these sweets. But when I raised it to her and asked her if she took them, she said no, right? And she didn't just say no. She really wanted me to believe her. And I didn't believe her. And I didn't want to bullshit believe her. I didn't want to tell her, yeah, I do believe you, or I do trust you, because the evidence was just overwhelming for me. And there were too many times in the past that she told me porcupines. So I honestly did not trust her in that moment, right? And we found ourselves locked in a standoff where she was adamant and getting angrier and angrier and more upset. Like, I swear on my life, I swear on God's life, I swear on your life. And I wasn't moving anywhere. I was also adamant that, hey, she's definitely done this. And I was trying to say to her at the time that, hey, telling the truth is important and all that kind of thing. But to be honest, I was in a bit of a strange space, right? I wasn't sure what the right thing was to say. And I often have this ability when I'm triggered a little bit to go into this rigid pattern, and I need to know the answers, right? So I was trying to search for the right words when what I really needed to do was search for the right energy. I think I did a really good job. I didn't melt down. I didn't raise my voice, but I was a little bit uncomfortable and not quite sure how to handle the situation, right? But I looked in the mirror afterwards and I was like, Lee, you're growing and you're developing, right? The words aren't perfect, but you have recognized that it's your energy that is the most important thing. And this is an important lesson for all of us, right? We are continually in practice. And we're going to be thrown curveballs every now and then, situations that we're not used to. And we've got to put our training into practice. And we're going to, feel a little bit like a baby giraffe, right? But I didn't fall back into my old command and conquer ways. The old me, the unconscious dad, the parts-led dad, the drinker, the alcohol-reliant dad, he would have definitely just asserted control, raised my voice, imposed consequences. Deep down, it would have all come from feeling unsafe and out of control. I'm the adult, I'm the parent, and I don't know what to do. And actually, let me say that again. I'm the adult and I'm the parent, but in that moment, I'm a child. It's really important to understand, right? Because once I'm triggered and I'm in sympathetic nervous system state, I'm actually a child. And that child is feeling unsafe because it cannot control, in this case, Zia, right? So what does it do to try to control her? Tries to scare her, tries to shout at her, tries to make myself bigger than her, tries to use my authority, my intellect, all that kind of stuff, right? And that version of me, he would show up loud and reactive because of those reasons. It was because my nervous system is dysregulated. This time, I was trying to pause. I was trying to breathe. I was trying to say less and just listen to her and notice. And even though I didn't handle it as well as I would have liked to, I did know that I handled it as consciously as I could. And right there, that is the difference. Because when you're doing this work and you're trying to live a self-led life, alcohol-free as fuck, you don't just leap from command and conquer to conscious Zen Lee overnight. You practice. You practice and you practice and you practice. And you become more aware of your inner child parts. You become more aware of your state of being, your energy, your thoughts, your feelings, your the way you speak, the way you convey yourself when you're triggered. You become more aware of what triggers you, who triggers you, right? And you get curious and you respond more rather than reacting more. And this, strivers, is no different, right? It's no different when we're talking to our children, when we're talking to the gas man or the electricity man or a life insurance person on the phone or a banker on the phone, when we're talking to our parents or bosses at work or employees who work for us, the way we speak to them, it's no different to the way we're going to speak to ourselves when we want to drink or when we drink when we don't want to drink. And that is like the key thing that I want to talk about after the break. Okay. So now we are going to take a short break. And while I do, please consider something. If the way you speak to your child mirrors how you speak to yourself, then what happens when you start showing both of them compassion? Let that sink in, okay? If you're not ready to stop drinking yet, that is A-okay with me. Because most people inside Strive Foundations, they're not ready either. They're not ready to quit, but they are ready to start looking at what is going on. Strive Foundations is a £47 workshop series designed to help you understand why you drink. Not just what it does to your body, but what it does to your life. You'll uncover the truth behind the liquid lie, meet the parts of you that love to drink alcohol, and get your first taste of what it means to live a self-led life alcohol-free as fuck. No shame, no pressure, no performance, just absolute clarity. So if something in this podcast speaks to you, do not wait for rock bottom. Start here, thestrivemethod.com/foundations. Now back to the episode. Welcome back to the 1000 Days Sober podcast, where we have been exploring how the energy we bring into parenting is the same energy we bring into our inner world, and why that matters if you want to live a self-led life alcohol-free as fuck. So one of our strivers in our community recently, he had a part that wants to drink, okay? But he also has another part, let's call it the inner critic, that despises that first part. This other part is like, hey, rationally, intellectually, I know that this shit is bad for me. So why do I have this other part that just ignores all the evidences in front of me and still drinks? And I'm paraphrasing here, but, you know, he calls it stupid, selfish, ridiculous. And I am paraphrasing. He might not use those words, but you get the gist, right? He can't understand why it wants poison, why it's sabotaging anything. Now, it's really important to recognize that that inner critic that's attacking the other part of him isn't trying to be cruel. It's just trying to protect him. The part wants safety. The part wants control. The part wants a regulated nervous system. But it's trying to do so and trying to get its goal in the only way it knows how, and that is by being punitive. And he probably learned it from his parents. His parents probably, when they felt unsafe and out of control, and he didn't do what they wanted him to do, they were punitive to him. And that's where he's got it from, right? So I asked him, what if it was a child? You had a child, and your child was struggling with impulse control, right? You didn't want this child to eat candy. You just didn't want the child to steal candy. Like Zia, right? What would you do? How would you speak to them? Because most of us, if we're being honest, if we have this problem, we will actually speak to our children the same way we're speaking to our parts, and vice versa. We villainize the part of us that drinks. We become internally the angry parent, the judge, the enforcer. And what does that do? It just creates more fear, more shame, more disconnection, and most importantly, more resistance. Because if you ever tell somebody not to do something and they dig their heels in, they're just going to be like, fuck off, I'm just going to be resistant. Whatever resists persists. So if you keep being punitive to the part of you that wants to drink alcohol, you'll just keep drinking alcohol. But here's what a self-led life requires. A self-led life encourages us to pause in the moment, to feel in our body, get out of our head and feel in our body, to literally feel your nervous system dysregulated, and to breathe and to calm yourself down until it starts to be regulated. And then when you've given yourself a pause, you can make a choice to lead, not with anger or dominance, but curiosity and care, to recognize that every part of you, even the parts you don't like, they're just doing the very best that they can to keep them safe. And this is the same as your children. In this situation with Zia, when I confront her, she's just doing the thing she needs to do to keep herself safe, right? And when you understand that, your internal world, the way you speak to yourself internally, is the same as the way you're speaking to people externally. And the way that you're speaking to people externally is the way that you're speaking to people internally. When you really get it and you start noticing it more and more, you can start treating yourself and your children with the same empathy, patience, and grace. And when you start doing this, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to practice, okay? You just need to practice. And really important, after that moment with my daughter, I waited until we were both regulated. And I went back to her and I got down on her level, eye to eye. And I said to her, no matter what you do, whether you take sweets, don't take sweets, take screen time, don't take screen time, don't do what I tell you, do what I tell you, whatever you do, I will always love you. Okay? I will always love you. And sometimes you will have a belief, I will have a belief, and they won't be the same. And I will always love you. And I gave her a big hug, right? You have to do the same to yourself. When you call yourself a prick, when you call yourself an idiot, when you call yourself, oh my God, I can't believe we're back to day one, you still have to repair that rupture internally. And I find personally, it's easier to practice externally than it is internally. It's easier to practice with your children and other people that are likely to activate your nervous system, like your wife or your husband. It's easier to practice there than it is in here. Okay, so think about your life as a training ground here. Okay, there's great opportunity to become better communicator, handle your nervous system more, and then you're much more likelier or less likelier to reach for the bottle. Okay. All right, today's daily vow. Today, I will not drink. I will pause before I judge any part of me. I will lead from curiosity, not condemnation, because every part of me is trying to protect me, even if its method is outdated. Some questions for you to reflect on as you go about your day. Where are you still trying to control your inner child like a misbehaving one? What parts of you need understanding, not punishment? And who else in your life might benefit from you choosing presence over power? Have a think about that, huh? Okay, if this episode gave you something to think about, please, if you can, rate and review this show. I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe as well, that really helps. And if you are interested in up-leveling your life, learning to speak to yourself and others with compassion to become a world-class communicator and to become alcohol-free as fuck, clue for you there. There's a pattern, right? Like if you can't communicate with people and you've got a drinking problem, it's going to be really difficult to stop drinking. Join Strive Foundations, right? So go to www.thestrivemethod.com/foundations. 20 epic as fuck workshops for just the measly price of 47 quid. Okay. All right. Today's sovereign vow. You ready to take it with me? One hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. Big deep breath. I am a striver who is alcohol free as fuck. And I will not drink today because that is not what I do. And that is not who I am. Until tomorrow, everybody, much love and strive on.